Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wind down. As you can see, it's like a party over here.
Friday party time.
Yep. We have Brennan still with us. Schlagbaum.
You
I'm
got
working
it.
on the
Again.
pronunciation. He says that I'm doing it right, but I'm still just tentative. I have to pour 3 glasses on camera right now. So
Lots of
please
pressure.
Avert your attention over here. Here, Hillary. Take it.
So today we are going to talk about HSAs and FSAs, and Brennan, the budget dog, is going to help talk us through the differences between them and why you might use them in your financial plan. So we're really excited to kind of have his expertise here.
And share some of your personal experiences with it as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. We have quite a bit lately.
Yeah.
How's that?
Great.
Okay. I need to go
Far
to
right
school.
one, the one I got, is a little higher.
We like to welcome our guests with a wealthy port.
Yes.
Wealthy, you get it?
I got it.
Yep.
I like
there
it.
you go.
Oh, I got it.
Well, cheers.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
Cheers. Cheers.
So we mentioned we're going to talk about HSAs and FSAs later, but I think one of the things that we have continuously talked about on ROI TV is getting into a financial disaster because you aren't set up for a financial emergency. And a lot of the times it could be a medical issue that puts you in a bad financial standpoint. I think we've all had personal stories about this and have had personal experience with this. So let's talk about that first, and then we can kind of talk about the nitty-gritty financials of it.
Yeah. You were saying you had a situation with your daughter.
So she's 6 months now, and 3 months ago, she had seizures randomly. We wouldn't have expected it, right?
Yeah.
Aaron's side's clear and free. My side's clear and free.
Yep.
Boom. She was hitting all of her milestones. All of a sudden, we had ambulances at her house, ER visits,
So scary.
five-day hospital stay.
Oh my goodness.
The bills racked up fast.
Yeah.
And as somebody that's not prepared, that's scary. You're not prepared. You have 34,000 is what we've amassed so far. So far, there's still specialist visits coming.
Right.
And that's a scary thought for a parent that's not prepared or has multiple kids.
Right.
So that was a scary event. But one, I think, critical thing is to know that your money is right, so that when those events happen, you can focus on that event.
Especially when it comes to medical emergencies.
Right. Exactly. It's scary. It's first off, I'm a new time parent. She was 4 months old.
Yeah.
3 or 4 months old, and she had back-to-back seizures. So first night we went to the ER. They sent us home, and they're like, she should be fine. The next night, less than 24 hours later, she had another one.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, the second one was at least more assuring. I knew it was happening. It wasn't like an allergic reaction or something crazy like that. But that first one was extremely scary because I didn't know what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
But even at that, the second time was scary in the sense that, like, is this something more severe than what they led us on to believe the night before in the emergency room? And so we found out she had epilepsy, which at first scared me.
Right.
But luckily there's a lot of treatment nowadays that it can be taken care of. But being prepared financially is extremely important.
Yeah. And I think especially yes with health, when you're in that is such a heightened emotional state when it comes to health, right? And so when you're faced with a sudden, something's happened to you or a family member, the last thing you want to do is have the added stress of how are we going to financially pay for this. But so what are the ways to better prepare for those health scares and
Sure.
the
And I think
crazy costs that are associated with them?
they're absurd.
Yeah.
So we talked about this yesterday. And I think the biggest thing is track your money, grow your money, and protect yourself.
Right.
If you have those things in place, you're probably including what I'm about to talk about. So 2 main ways are FSA and HSA. So these are health-related accounts that are going to protect you if you come across something like this, that you can provide for your family, and it's a savings mechanism, just like anything
Specifically for healthcare.
Specifically for healthcare, correct.
Okay.
So if you have a health-related emergency fund and you've set, let's say $6,000 you're on the hook for, but you've over the last 4 or 5 years you've saved 20 grand through these accounts, you can actually use those to pay for those emergencies. Now, there's a difference between the FSA and HSA in the sense that the FSA is use it or lose it.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
at the end of that year, if you've saved, it's gone. So you need to be using it.
Why would you ever choose it? What's the...
It's a good tool to use for somebody that's trying to save for medical related expenses that they're anticipating for that given year.
Wouldn't you just get the other one? What's the...
So I think, and this is just personal, if you know, say, you're going to have a baby that year and you're going to be delivering and you know there's an extra cost to that, you can put X amount into your FSA because you know you're going to use it all up.
That's a guarantee.
It's expected.
It's an expected.
Yeah. Right.
Or when I was in my 20s, I put aside X amount of money because I knew I was going to get my wisdom teeth out, and like I put that in an FSA.
Okay.
Because I knew I was going to use it before the end of the year.
But is there something about the FSA that is, better than using the other? Like, is there something?
In my opinion, I think that if the insurance plan, so for the HSA, you need a high deductible health plan.
Okay.
That can come with costs, especially in our situation where we max that out in 5 seconds of the year. So therefore, we hit our out-of-pocket maximum January 29th of that year, which so we hit $6,000. For families that might not be able to afford that, it doesn't really make sense to maybe go the HSA route because that's high deductible.
Okay, so that's the difference between...
Exactly. So if you want just a basic medical plan and you want to save for medical, but you don't want to go all in and invest, which we'll get to that in a second, maybe an FSA is an okay route.
I see. Okay. Oh, I'm learning a lot. I didn't know about any of this. I mean, these are all things that would have been helpful. I've been in a position with healthcare where it's been kind of scary with the pandemic. I and a lot of actors in the theater industry, we all sort of lost our insurance because we weren't accruing our work weeks to keep our insurance. And I was 7 months pregnant at the time, and I had to find my own insurance. It was the first time in my adult life that I had to go through that process of finding my own insurance. And so I was very naive as to how that actually works and how confusing and costly it is.
So expensive.
Yes. And I realized what a privilege it's been that I've been getting it through my employers. And wow, that was really scary. And I had not planned for those costs, not to mention I hadn't planned for a pandemic to shut down all of the work that we were doing. So,
of course.
This is very interesting for me to hear for the future because that was so stressful when you're, 7 months pregnant. That's the last thing you want to be worrying about. You don't want to be pregnant and completely stressed out because you don't know how you're going to just pay to do something as natural as deliver, a child. It's just, it's nuts. It's also nuts that your insurance can drop you when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Those come with expenses too. I mean, we had Logan last year.
Yeah.
And so those expenses we maxed out our out-of-pocket max.
Yes.
Then this year we were like, okay, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, January 29th we're done.
Yeah.
$6,000 in the hole. So
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you went through that. That is terrifying. I cannot even imagine.
It was a very scary experience, but at least from our perspective, we had everything in line. We were controlling the controllables, and I think any parent listening to this, anybody out there, control that. Control the pieces that you can control.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Did you reach into your Rolodex of financial expertise to navigate your way through
Absolutely.
this? I bet
Absolutely.
you did.
So we've been using the HSA for quite some time.
Good for you. See?
3-4 years, but we don't use it. And so I'll get into that, why that's so important in a second. But so one of the reasons I love this account is because of the triple tax savings. This is phenomenal. This is a gold mine of account. And most people are thinking health related reasons for this account, but there's multiple reasons. This is a hybrid account.
How does it have triple tax savings?
Good thing you asked. So let me walk you through the 3 layers of this tax savings and how it relates to bigger things than just those even. So first things first is when you put money into this account, it's tax free. Just like a traditional IRA, just like a traditional 401k would work. Now at the second level, that money is going to grow tax free. So you think IRAs or retirement accounts that are growing tax free over 30, 40 years.
Okay.
And then the third one is for qualified medical expenses. So if you have a qualified medical expense, which would be like what we recently experienced, sure, I could take and withdraw that money and pay it towards those medical bills and call it a day. But I'm withdrawing that money in a potential investment vehicle. So my goal is budget for it on the outside, use my personal money to pay for all of these receipts, let's say $6,000 worth of medical bills that my insurance, requires me to cover, and then I save those receipts for a later date. So then that third tax savings now becomes a vehicle that I can take out tax-free at any point in time. So let's say I spent $6,000 out of pocket for all these medical expenses. If in 10 years I'm like, hey, I have an emergency, I need to pool that money, I can now use that as a buffer, maybe if things are tough, to use towards another emergency fund or another emergency that's not related to medical, just anything. Or you can just take it out. It's a phenomenal tool, but let me take it a step further. So if you want to use this, that's excellent. That's how we use it personally. But at 65, it becomes a traditional IRA. So now you can kind of, you might be able to do it for medical reasons. You might be able to use it for retirement, maybe non-retirement along the way, because all those out-of-pocket contributions you made with your bank are now, able to withdraw. So this account can do everything.
Wow. So, and say you switch employers, 2 or 3 times in your career. Do you then roll over your HSA like to a different employer, or is it a separate account that you kind of keep control of no matter who your employer is?
So I think the HSA is often thought of as a company asset kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not. It's actually the high deductible health plan, your insurance plan is through the company. They link that to a bank account essentially, which is an HSA. So they're totally separate. A lot of times these companies will have partnerships with Bank of America and they'll link you and it'll make it easy for employees just to go there. I could theoretically go open 4 HSAs with different banks. Now my contribution limits are going to be $7,300 for family and half of that for single. So there is a contribution limit on these accounts. So if I want to do 4, in totality, I still only can do that. So it doesn't make sense to go get 4. But if you do want to switch from the primary account, you could do it into a better one. Wow. And oftentimes people do that because there's additional benefits from a tax or from an investment standpoint. Right. Maybe this bank provides better investments than this, or they provide less fees. And so people are trying to, make the best bang for their buck. And so maybe this one, first dollar or something like that would make more sense.
And do you get to choose what you invest that money in, like a normal, IRA or 401k?
It's limited. It's more like a 401k. So if you're comparing the two, IRAs are the open market.
Okay.
401ks are a subset of 20 funds. Same with HSA. So there is a limitation to that. Okay. And so you
couldn't go put it all in crypto and be like,
you can't do
it.
You can't do crypto, although I might do that. I'm just kidding. But what I would do is I would definitely, that's why people switch the bank that their employer often links them to, because the investment options might not be great.
Wow. Oh, I need a sip of wine.
It's a lot to take in, but it's a very valuable account.
No, it sounds like it. I'm going to have to pick your brain after this as well. I'm gonna be
DMs are always open.
DMs, I'm going to be DMing you. I'm like, all right, I want to do this. Help me, step by step. I'm doing it. Because I don't want to go through what I went through.
Yeah, no.
It's scary.
Especially when you're having a health scare. You want to be able to focus on that and not have to focus on the financials.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
You want to focus on getting well, whether it's you, whether it's your child, and not have to focus on the financials.
One of the taglines my brand talks about a lot is we care about money, so we don't have to care about money, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And the big reason for that is a lot of people think I'm a money account. My focus is that. It's really not. It's because of these types of moments. I can, now that my finances are correct, I can now spend time with my daughter, making sure she's 100% okay.
Yeah.
Going to the extra doctor visit instead of me knowing I have to work. I can focus on what matters.
Right.
Because it's bigger than math.
It is amazing too when you have a child, how your priorities shift, and yes, just relieving the stress of, all the financial burdens when you get there, so that you can just enjoy and know that your child is safe.
Right.
It's really the most important thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So yeah, this is very helpful. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be having a conversation with my husband tonight. I'm not even kidding.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's an account I think almost anybody should consider. It's very hard not to consider, at least. It doesn't make sense for everybody. If there's high medical cost every single year, they're expecting it, and they can't afford that. Like that $6,000 is pushing it. Maybe don't consider that. But look at your options and see if they're available.
Yeah. Well, all right. Now that everyone's brains are full and everyone's inspired, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we will be right back to talk more with Brennan. Welcome back, everyone. All right, we were actually just talking over commercial break about, and we have to share this, about checking your itemized bill after you've been in a hospital. Take it away, because this is something I actually didn't do.
Yeah, so this was something that I had heard about before I'd given birth. This was a thing that was going around the office, because I had worked in a mostly female office, and everybody said, even friends who had doctors as partners, was like, make sure you get an itemized bill. And so we did, and it was astounding how much out of pocket I had to pay, even though I had full insurance, and I had the simplest birth you could probably think of.
Yeah.
My daughter was born within 13 hours. I was in the hospital, like actively in there for less than 4. The doctor was in the room for less than an hour. Like, no drugs, nothing. And yet it was $25,000 and $4,000 out of pocket. And that was astounding to me. And we got the bill back, and I asked for the itemized bill, and it was really interesting that it cost $120 for 2 Advil. And that was I was like, would have brought my own painkillers had I known.
How is that legal?
It's astounding. It's absurd
Like,
on every single level. First things first is medical processing is very loose, and there's
Clearly.
so many things going through that system, and some things just honestly get missed or added incorrectly and stuff like that. So that's part of the problem. But you always should be asking any medical bill that you have, request that explanation of benefits with a itemized bill, because if you don't, there's going to be things on there, like you said, or a Band-Aid that costs $100. And that's
how do you argue that? They're like, well, our Band-Aids cost $100. Like,
Well, they won't. That's the thing. It's kind of one of those reasonable tests. Like, when you call them out on that, they're going to say, oh, we should have removed that, or we should have reduced this to X number. And they'll make the change. They will.
Okay.
I didn't know I could go back and talk to them about it. I was just interested in
who do you call? Do you call the hospital directly?
The billing department.
Billing department of whoever is the charging
Okay,
them.
and you have to actually have that conversation.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's embarrassing for them, really.
That kind of is.
I mean, I feel like I would have a hard time not being like, aren't you embarrassed?
Well, and I think one of the interesting things, too, is that people with different insurances pay different prices they get charged different prices for even the same procedure.
Oh yeah.
So
vastly different sometimes.
Vastly different.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really interesting and one of the hardest things about the American medical.
It is such a confusing healthcare system.
Yeah.
It really is so confusing. I mean, when I was dealing with trying to find my own insurance, I couldn't believe it. And my husband's British, so he has a very different situation, and his whole family, they were just like, their minds were blown. They couldn't believe what we were going through. And at one point we were like, can we go to England? Maybe, but obviously, because we don't live there, we're not paying taxes there,
Right.
That wasn't going to work either. But it was really scary.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to navigate. Unless, you have a doctorate in it, I feel like, how do you know how to do this stuff?
That's part of the reason I talk about the fundamentals of finance so much, is because when these things occur, no one expects them.
Right.
But they're going to happen at some point
Yep.
in some sort of fashion. Like, do we expect Logan to have seizures? No.
Right.
But do we expect our daughter or kid to eventually have an ER visit? Probably.
Right.
So we need to set ourselves up for those moments that we know are going to come.
Because the unexpected moments are inevitable
Absolutely.
in life.
Yes.
It's just,
That is what life is, right?
yeah,
They
and
come
I
at
think
the
we want to
worst
pretend
times.
we're untouchable and invincible, but the truth is it's going to happen at some point, and so it's better to be prepared. Well, I mean, this is all we talk about, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
We talk about that with like estate plans and everything. It's just like, it is our number one topic over here on RYTV, preparedness.
And another stat that's very alarming is that 2/3 of bankruptcies are due to medical debts.
It's so sad.
And that's just alarming to me. And it says everything about the HSA, the FSA, the planning perspective of an individual to make sure that you have your finances right so you don't get into this predicament, because you don't want to file bankruptcy. That's the worst thing in the world. So that sets you back 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you can avoid this at all costs by listening to this, by researching, do it.
Right. Especially filing for bankruptcy because of health-related issues. That would just fill you with so much resentment and anger. You know what I mean? You're like, you just don't feel safe or protected. And so, we really all have to take matters into our own hands, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So beyond, possibly doing an HSA or an FSA, what are some other ways that people can prevent having to file for bankruptcy if they have like a really high, expensive medical event happen?
So if it's related to medical specifically, I would definitely consider those two options. But if you did not have those two options available for whatever reason, emergency funds are key. I mean, that's part of the planning process, right?
Yeah.
So outside of that, having that maybe 3 to 6 month or even above and beyond that, because your 3 to 6 month emergency fund is the basic. But if you have additional medical expenses are coming, maybe even a sinking fund, something that you're preparing for along the way. You don't know the medical bills are going to be $1,000, but that something's going to be coming and it's going to be expensive. So to save every month for that and put it away, that's a really good idea.
What are you where are you an advocate of saving your emergency fund? Do you think just a regular savings fund, or is there a different place beyond an HSA for health savings, but you're just regular emergency fund? Where would you be an advocate for putting that money?
So typically I'm going to say high yield savings accounts.
Okay.
When I say high yield, they're yielding 50 basis points at this point. So they're not high yield, but they're better than a traditional bank account right now. Hopefully those goes up with time with the rates and stuff like that. We'll see what's to be said. But I would start there. I think that's the best place to start. I don't want to get tricky with this one. This is something you need. I'm not going to go leverage my emergency fund into the market and maybe or maybe not have it when I need that emergency.
Yeah.
Right.
You're gonna lose money on cash sitting in a bank. You will. But it's not for making money. It's for assurance.
Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
It's so nice to have a guest here.
I know.
So
I loved
just
it.
us chilling. You have to come back again.
I will be.
Physically join us. I know you're going to have your own segment monthly, but
I can't wait for that.
I know that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you do. It's going to be so cool.
A lot.
A lot. I know.
A lot.
I know you're busy. I know you're busy. So thank you for being here, and thank you all for tuning in to another episode of The Wind Down. We will see you next week. Cheers.